You multiply by the conjugate, which would be the square root of x minus 1 times the top and the bottom. We have to solve this equation by setting it equal to what? 0. If there is a square term and a first power term, you've got to set it equal to 0. That's the only way you're going to solve the equation. And you either factor here, set it equal to 0, and factor. And if you can't factor, you've got your quadratic formula that you can use. But remember, you have to set it equal to 0 because that's how you find A, B, and C. We looked at this. What do you have to add these two fractions? Common denominator. But before you can find it, what do you have to do? You have to factor. If anything can be factored, you need to factor it. All right? Then you find your common denominator. You multiply your numerators by what it needs to be multiplied, and you get your final answer. Oh, let's go back here. Can you get rid of these fractions? No, they are not an equation. It's simply two fractions put together. Can you get rid of these fractions?
Yes.
Yes, because now it's in the form of an equation. And if we multiply every term by the same factor, we're going to form an equivalent or a new-looking equation, but we're still going to get the same answer for x. So we would start by factoring, finding a common denominator, multiplying each term by that common denominator, and then solving our equation. How do you solve these? Two equations. One equal to positive 15, one equal to negative 15. What if it's not in a nice, pretty package? You got to isolate the absolute value part. Then set it equal to positive and to negative. And what if it says this?
Undefined.
There's no solution because the absolute value will never be equal to negative 2. Absolute value is positive. How do you solve this? Isolate the radical and then square both sides and finish it off. What about this? Isolate x squared and then take the square root of both sides. And when you take the square root, your answer must include plus and minus. Plus and minus. Isolate x squared, take the square root of both sides. Why do I not have to set that equal to 0 and solve?
No other x term.
There's no other x term. There's only one x term. Okay, as long as there's just one x term, you can simply isolate it and do whatever you got to do. What kind of line is this?
Horizontal.
Vertical line going through the x-axis at 2. This is a horizontal line going through the y-axis at negative 1. If you were asked to graph this line, you must first put it in what? Y equals mx plus b form. Y equals mx plus b. And I'm going to find it. Then what we've done today, our hyperbolas, our ellipses, being able to identify them, your circle, your parabolas. What's the deal? What's the difference between parabolas and circles, hyperbolas, and ellipses? Parabola only has one term that's squared. In circles, ellipses, and hyperbolas, both terms are squared. Okay? And then we also talked about elimination and substitution. Now, I'm going to give you the sections where you can actually go in your book. I recommend you go in your book to these sections, work some odd problems that deal with the examples that I've already put in your review. Work the odds because you can check yourself at the back of the book. Now, if you know that you can do 3/4 of these sections with your eyes closed and half of your brain tied behind your back, don't spend time working on those sections. Work on the ones you can't do. Your book has examples, it has instructions. You can always go to YouTube and find that section on YouTube and rewatch the video from that day. These are specific sections though where you can get practice. Tomorrow I will have for you a pre-test that we're going to work on in class, or you're going to work on in class.